Hello everybody, welcome to another watercolor tutorial. I am breaking it up from all of the landscape tutorials by bringing you a tutorial on something autumn themed here. So we're going to be painting a tree trunk that has been as if it's been sliced. There is a scientific word for this, but I do not remember grade 11 biology. It's not transverse, is it? There's like three, it's like this, and like, anyway, you know what I mean. A slice of wood, a tree trunk. So I don't know how I'm gonna do this. I have watered I took a little bit of brown and I watered it down heavily, because like ideally I would just be using water, but I need to be able to see where I'm painting. So you just want to paint like a rough shape of a circle, because tree trunks are not perfectly circular. I mean, I'm sure some are, but just paint like a rough circular shape. Try not to make it too perfect. I think it'll just look way more natural if it's not a perfect circle. So sort of like that. I don't know if you can see that very well, but we want to keep that nice and wet. So just maybe go over it a second time with water once you've got your shape down, to ensure that it stays moist throughout this process. So now I'm going to take my size 1 brush, and I'm trying to figure out how I'm gonna do this. So by the way, this is a reference from Mariek Studio, and that's what I'm using as a reference. So anyway, we're going to be painting a series of circles here. Our innermost circle is going to be very yellow. So you basically, and so we're doing wet on wet here. So paint a yellow circle. Then it's going to be, I don't want to say it's orange because it's not. It's more brown than orange, but still kind of orange. So we're gonna paint a brownish orange circle around that. And then another brownish orange circle around that. And make your circles kind of irregular, sort of following the shape that you've painted here. So then I'm gonna take kind of like brown that's been mixed with a little bit of black. That's going to be my next color. Excuse me. So you want these colors to spread out like that. I'm gonna take I don't think I even have a maroon here. What is this? Oh, I kind of do. So I mixed maroon in with my brown, or some sort of maroony color, and I'm painting that around as well. And you want these to spread out a lot more than mine have. So like mine are not really spreading out as much as I wanted. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take water and I'm going to go in between each layer and try and help those colors spread out a little bit. gonna redo my orange, which has kind of faded into nothing. I should redo all of these. Okay, so they're kind of all over the place now, but that's okay because that's not going to be like our main attraction, as I would like to call it. So what I want to do now, I'm taking brown and I am mixing it with black to create a very dark brown walnut color. And I'm taking my size 1 brush, and we're going to be creating the bark of this thing while it's still wet. So you want this bark to be uneven, obviously, because bark is not smooth. So I'm placing my paintbrush kind of parallel to the piece of paper, and without lifting my brush, I'm moving it in a dabbing motion without lifting the brush off of the paper across, following the shape of my circle. And that creates this rough looking bark pattern. And because we're doing this while it's still wet, while our circle is still wet, the darkness is fading into the rest of the slice very naturally, which is certainly what we want. And you can even kind of fade the bark in some sections, like as if there is no bark. I can fix that later. And then have it reappear. So that's already coming together really, really nicely, I think. I'm gonna add a little bit more black to my brown and just add a tiny bit of blackish brown to the edges that I've already painted in some sections because it's faded a little bit more than I wanted it to. Because I want to keep that bark nice and intense in color. Woo! Okay, I hope that when that dries it doesn't fade too much, because I really like how dark that is. Okay, actually, now that I say that, I'm going to pull up even more black and just add it even more. This is a nice change from all the landscapes I've been painting. It's nice to paint something a tiny bit different than usual. And it's fall themed, which is a bonus. Okay, I think that's dark enough. In hindsight, I would have added more grooves to it. But we can still rectify that by just painting over white watercolor or white acrylic, depending on how opaque your watercolor is. But we can do that after. So The thing I kind of wish I had done, because this isn't quite wet anymore, is taken some of that black and mixed it with the red. I'm gonna take my size quadruple 0 and just see if I can do that. Oh, it's still a little bit wet. So I'm just, yeah, taking that red, that reddish maroon, mixing it with a tiny bit of black and just going around my circle again. And I want to do that with the next layer as well. And then with the orange, and the yellow as well. Sort of like that. And we want those lines to fade, so make sure your paper is still wet when you're doing that, or as wet as you can make it. So trying to figure out how to achieve the texture on this, like the horizontal kind of going in a circle texture while also creating the vertical texture. I think we have to let this dry before we can do that. So I think this is dry. I'm going to try and use the same colors that I did for each circular layer. And I'm painting these horizontal lines . And I'm going to be doing that basically on every layer, and I know that that's very time consuming. But hopefully it'll look nice. So I don't know if you're gonna see the tutorial where I talked about this before this one or after this one, but we went to go see fireworks last evening, and they had us park in a field, and our car is not an off-road vehicle. So when we tried to get off, we heard like it was way too much of an incline in a field, and we heard this big like crushed crack in the front bumper area. I'm like, oh my god. So we looked underneath when we got home, and this big piece of, we thought it was metal, it turns out it was plastic, but this big chunk from the bottom of the car was just hanging off. And I'm like, oh my goodness. When are the problems going to end? I don't want to be an adult anymore. And so I was complaining about that because I was filming a tutorial when we got back from the fireworks. I was finishing one up. But luckily this morning we went under, and the piece that was hanging off wasn't the heat shield, the metal heat shield. It was just some piece of plastic. I don't know what it's for, but it's normally held on by these plastic, I'm just gonna call them widgets. I don't even know if that's the proper word to describe them, but it's held on that way. And we just zip tied it back on, so my husband claims that that's even stronger than the original plastic widgets that were holding it in. So that's one problem that is kind of luckily a non-issue, not something we have to take the car to the mechanic for. But the other issue was our chicken laid the weirdest egg. Like it laid a yolk just separate from anything. It didn't have a shell. It just laid the yolk. And then there was this small ball next to it. I would say like the size of a very large marble, like half the size of a golf ball. And it looked like it was like perfectly round, and it was an eggshell, or I don't know, because it was dark, so I didn't really get a good look at it. I just chucked it into the bush, and in hindsight, we should have actually cracked it open or tried to crack it open. Maybe it wasn't even an egg shell. Maybe it was the equivalent of a kidney stone in humans. Who knows? But now this chicken is clearly not feeling well because she's sitting in the lay box and kind of falling asleep. And I'm just so tired of these constant chicken problems. Like, we did not have this many problems in the first couple months of owning these chickens, and now it's just problem after problem. Like, we just nursed another chicken back to health that was attacked by a squirrel, and we had to keep her separate from the others for 4 days, and she slept in the house in a box, and I just don't have anything left in me to do it again, like put all that emotion into another chicken, because I really get emotional about these chickens. But she's clearly in distress. She's clearly in discomfort or pain or something, because she's sitting very strangely in the laying box. And we've looked it up. We don't know what's going on with her, and it's just another problem. Another issue that needs to be dealt with. So that's where I'm at right now. So I'm almost to the end of these thin lines that I've painted. And now we're gonna start doing the kind of, I'll call them the vertical lines. So we'll start from the middle, and if it wasn't obvious, I used colors corresponding to whatever layer I was painting. So now I'm using like a light orange, dark yellow for the center here, and we're going to be painting these like grooves almost. That are coming out of each, or crossing each layer. There's a word that I'm trying to find, but I can't find it. Like the little grooves and glaciers, what are those called? The fjords of glaciers. Whatever those are. We're gonna do that for each layer, which I know it is a little bit tedious, but what is my point? Hopefully it'll pay out in the end. It'll look nice. We'll see. The cracks, maybe that's the word I was looking for. So the way that I'm painting these is I start off with the tip of my brush, and then I press down in the middle to widen it, and then lift off my brush again to taper it off. you know, you can be quite, is explorative a word? Because you can be explorative with how you do these cracks. Like you can add more pigmentation to some of them to kind of make them stand out a little bit more than the others. It's up to you. It looks a little too thorny for me at this moment, but it's because these rings should have been darker now that I'm looking at it, but what are you gonna do? You can't foresee everything. Oh, that was way too much brown. So I'm adding a little bit more of these brown circular lines as I go along and making them a little bit darker because I think they'll work a little bit better with my painting that way. And you can make some of these cracks a little bit lighter as well. Anyway, moving on to the darker one. So this one has almost, it's almost like black cracks. Some of them are really long. They transcend or connect into the other ones. Honestly, it's looking a little too thorny for my liking. I'm hoping it kind of comes together in the end. Now we're gonna do the maroony color. Although it should be more black than maroon at this point. And I'm even adding some cracks in the trunk, like the what do you call it? Not the crust. Oh my gosh, the bark of the trunk. Sorry, yeah, yes, that's what I'm trying to say. And that will make it look a little bit more realistic too. So try to find where you would think like a crack naturally would occur, where it kind of dips down. So rather than putting it here, you would put it here. Oh, sorry, you didn't see that. Rather than putting it on this like hump, you would kind of put it in this little divot. It's coming together, I suppose. I kind of skipped that red part. We should go back to that and continue with that. The maroony section. Yeah?
Where can I find the celery?
It's a small Ziploc bag in the freezer.
Okay.
Anyways, you can kind of keep going with this, and definitely you just keep painting on those horizontal lines, or the lines that are parallel to one another. I don't really know how to describe them. The ones that follow the shape of the circle. I probably should add a few more here because there aren't really that many. But they should be hairline thin in order to look a little more realistic. So the one thing I'm tempted to do, but I'm not going to, I might, is add, no, I'm not going to, because if you add color just in a circle, like we did in the beginning, to allow it to spread out naturally, it would look a lot more natural, but I don't want to do that now that we've added all these details. I'm so tempted to, guys. Hold on. Let's just water this down quite a bit. Because I really want to prevent any cauliflowering from happening.
Maybe I'm sorry. Is it not this? That's leek.
That's leek.
Where's the celery?
It's a bag that's even smaller than that, folded up.
Okay.
I said this in a previous tutorial that's also released in October because I'm painting all of October in one day, but my husband has quite honestly interrupted me in every single painting tutorial. Either with, where is this, or I need to use the toilet, or something like that, and it's taking a lot out of me to be patient and not get frustrated. Simply because I want to get through these tutorials and move along with my day. But I'm kind of, I don't really perfect my, or edit my tutorials so that they're like perfect like I used to. Not that they were perfect, but I mean, I'd edit out all conversations and everything. It was just instructional, but now it's just like whatever happens, you guys are gonna hear it, other than bathroom sounds, which I spare you guys. But that's basically it. That's our tree trunk slice. I hope you guys like this one. Let me know what you think in the comments, if you enjoyed it, if this even looks like a slice of tree to you. So comment down below, hit like on this video if you enjoyed it, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll be sure to see you in the next tutorial.